You remember like 20 years ago, movies used to actually be good, and Pixar came out with a great one, Incredibles, right? You remember that movie? Well, do you remember at the start of that movie, Mr. Incredible was being interviewed by the news, and he makes a comment about being the maid. I just left this place, and it's a mess again, or whatever he says. You know what I'm talking about? And that's this episode. You better just stay tuned to understand what I'm trying to say here. Well. Welcome back to the Range Minded Podcast. My name is Steve. I'm excited to have you here. Let's have a conversation, but let me explain what I meant by the teaser, I guess, in the beginning. Actually, before we can get this started, make sure you like and hit that little bell, whatever. Do all the things that you're supposed to do, so whenever I come out with a new episode, you'll be one of the first ones to know about it. That'd be greatly appreciated. Anyways, so like I said, in The Incredibles, right, the Pixar movie, Mr. Incredible is being interviewed, and I can't remember the whole nuance of the interview, but he says, you know, I'm just like the maid. I turn around and it's a mess again. Something like that. You know what I'm trying to say. That was this week in the gun world. Like, I turned my back for 5 minutes and it's chaos. Chaos erupts. Now, to be fair, right off the bat, I actually recorded an episode twice, and by about 2 a.m, I was so angry. This was a few days ago. I was so angry that I just gave up. And then life happened. I had to play mechanic and all sorts of other stuff. And I just haven't had time to get back and record an episode. And man, all hell broke loose. All hell broke loose in the gun community. Good grief. So let's go back what I was going to talk about in that original episode. At that time, when I first recorded that episode, John Crump had mentioned that there was potentially a suppressor company that was going to fight. It has been fighting to keep suppressors under the NFA. If you remember, the Hearing Protection Act is part of the big, beautiful bill or something. I'm not quite sure where that all fits in there, but the Hearing Protection Act was being stalled in the Ways and Means Committee. And we found out that there was allegedly, there was a suppressor company or a firearms related company that was lobbying to keep suppressors on the NFA, but it was cool with the $0 tax stamp, which is eventually what the Ways and Means Committee fell to, like keeping the suppressors on the list, but dropping the tax down to $0. And obviously, if you spend any time online, you'd know that didn't turn out so well. The amount of people gun owners that have jumped down the throats of our politicians, me included, I would say swatting, that's what I was going to say, but just bombarding their social media accounts, particularly X, was a barn burner.
Dear Darla, I hate your stinking guts.
For scolding lawmakers after the Ways and Means Committee failed to do their job. Barn burner, plus untold hundreds, if not thousands, of phone calls to representatives from firearms owners saying, hey, what the heck? And with great results, because a lot of these 2A related representatives didn't vote on this bill, the big beautiful bill or whatever, because what the Ways and Means did with the suppressors, they said, no, we're not voting for this. Go back and restore the Hearing Protection Act and the Short Act the way they were presented to the Ways and Means Committee. Once that's restored, we'll vote on the bill. Fabulous. By the way, that in itself tells you that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So make sure, if you do not appreciate what your state and local representation is doing, be loud, be in their face politely, right? You don't need to be a degenerate when it comes to this, but be respectful, but be stern and make your voice heard.
I know more than you. All right.
This worked. This worked with this whole Ways and Means Committee. It's going to go back. They're going to hopefully restore it all it is, the way it was originally written and intended, the way the sponsors and the author wrote the bill. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes. But that's besides the point. Was it yesterday? So right now I'm recording. Today's the 16th. It's late night of the 16th of May. So it turns out, actually, let's do this. We should probably, first of all, I need to slow down because I'm extremely excited to actually record a show tonight. Let me do this here. First things first, shall we? So let's start with this. This is what I was just talking about. So this is on Ammo Land, obviously. And talking about the HPA and the Short Act being stalled in the Ways and Means. So this was written by John Crump, actually, on the 9th of May. So he goes through in detail pretty good. If you don't know who John Crump is, first of all, he's pretty active on X and Rumble and sometimes YouTube, but mostly X and Rumble. But he also writes for Ammo Land, and he's a great reporter. He does a good job digging into the stuff. So anyways, listening to some of the stuff he'd had online and reading these articles that he had posted was an eye-opener for me, and I started looking at things a little bit differently, and I was rather surprised. He mentioned, well, actually, let's do this. The biggest problem that we saw from the Ways and Means Committee was this guy right here, okay? David Kustoff. So he is a representative from Tennessee. Now, Crump brought up his name and another name that I'm not going to talk about. I did talk about it in the other episode that never saw the light of day because for some reason, maybe the feds were watching me and they kept shutting down what was going on. But he mentioned Kustoff's name, which is definitely an issue. Like, he is an insult to you folks in Tennessee for sure. But he started talking about lobbying, and I got curious. So this is Open Secrets. I know you can't really see. Let me do that. Open Secrets, which is an online resource for all sorts of lobbying and FOIA stuff, basically, right? Freedom of Information Act stuff about lobbying and donations and where those donations are coming, because all that stuff has to be reported to the federal government. There's not a lot of sneaky, underhanded contributions. I'm sure there's some, but a lot of it has to be reported, right? It's a federal deal. And I was really surprised about Kustoff. I was concerned about where the money was coming from and what it was being spent on. He claims to be extremely pro 2A, but him and his buddies were all about keeping the NFA active and leaving suppressors inside the NFA, but dropping the tax to zero, like we mentioned earlier. I was just confused. I wanted to know where this dude was getting his cash from. So you jump on Open Secrets. It's not, I'm not sponsored by them. It's just a handy tool to have. And his first and biggest contributor, I'm not going to say the name of him because I don't want to get my hand slapped, but you can read what it says. You can see right there what it says. That's his largest contributor. But number 2 was Blackstone Group. And I'm not going to dive into the whole Blackstone thing. Let's just say that Blackstone is the largest property owner in the world. And they own a vast amount of rental properties. Their MO is they go in kind of a lower income. They undercut the price. They buy the property and then they jack the rent up. They've been known to be doing this for a long time. Now, they also have connections. This is what I talked about in the last episode, and that's maybe why I got shut down. Not the last episode that I recorded. It never got produced. Was ties to the Clinton Foundation, ties to the Democrat Party, deep ties to Obama, all this stuff, right? Very weird that a Republican senator is getting cash from this organization. To be fair, the guy that owns and runs Blackstone, which he's 51% of Blackstone, he's friends with Donald Trump too. and he's advised Donald Trump in things in the past, which maybe it's real estate stuff because this is a huge real estate holdings company. I don't know. You should be aware of that, though, that Blackstone has some very gross ties to very powerful people that probably don't have good American freedom interests in mind. Now, I mentioned that the owner of Blackstone, the guy that started the company, was 51% of the company. Well, a huge portion of that company is owned by BlackRock, and I forgot the other company's name. Because I wasn't going to talk about this. The other group that's tied in with BlackRock. So take that with whatever you want to take it as. Needless to say, he's raised a butt ton of money from people that don't necessarily have American freedom and values in mind. Now that made me think about a bunch of other conservative politicians. Now, I'm not going to go through this whole exercise. That's not what this episode is about. I just want to make you guys aware that there are tools out there like Open Secrets that you can dive in to these representatives that say they have you in mind. But in reality, it sure appears anyways that they're more concerned about donations and contributions and other people's pockets than they are about you. I just want you to do that with what you will, right? Just anyways, that was kind of a side rail of what I wanted to talk about. Nonetheless, Mr. Kustoff, that's how he got here, right? Was Kustoff and some of his homies were the ones that removed the tax from suppressors from the NFA, but just not the whole, they need to gut the NFA. And here's the problem with that. Like, sure, I guess the $200, taking the $200 tax, that's a win. Sure, I can see how you can see that as a win. Here's the issue, though. The instant that takes place, if it does, there's going to be a flood of new purchases of suppressors, a flood. So wait times that were pretty reasonable right now, and we're seeing them within days instead of months. Those are going to go, that time frame is going to be gone because the vast amount of people submitting paperwork. And there's the other problem, the paperwork. Fingerprints, photos, all that stuff still exists. The other thing that absolutely exists, and this is the biggest issue with not just dismantling the NFA altogether, is it's a registry. It's a registry. You buy a can, you submit all your information, that goes to the feds. They know that you have suppressors. It doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to deduce that if you have suppressors, you have firearms in the home. And it gets to be this muddy, disgusting, and rapidly growing registry that the feds have control of. I know we've already talked about stuff for the database that Dettelbach said wasn't searchable when it's definitely searchable. There's no reason it wouldn't be searchable. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But it keeps something that's unconstitutional, that shouldn't be there. The NFA shouldn't exist anyways. Short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, and vertical foregrips, potentially arm braces. Like that stuff is asinine. It's so arbitrary. It's so arbitrary that they put a $200 tax stamp on it. And yes, I know that tax stamp existed in the 30s when they originally introduced this legislation. Thankfully, it hasn't been market adjusted for current times, which they would love to do. The NFA just needs to be gutted, because if we just neuter it little by little, the next go round, the next president, the next Congress, they can just add those things back in. It has to be gone. It has to be destroyed. And that's what we should be fighting for. Which brings us to the next issue that kept popping up. So let's see, was it this one? I guess we'll go with this one. I've got a few different, it is this one. I got a few different articles pulled up that I wanted to share with you. And again, this is back to Ammo Land. This was this is an article that made me think about, it's another John Crump live that I was watching. And this was dated today, actually, the 16th of May. It turns out that Silencer Central was, okay, allegedly, we're not going to implicate him straight off the bat, but it appears that Silencer Central was the one involved with keeping suppressors and the NFA intact, but just reducing the tax. Now you might say, Steve, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Why would a 2A related company want to keep suppressors inside the NFA? It doesn't make sense. Well, you got to look at the way Silencer Central works. So they are the largest, as far as I understand, I could be wrong. They are the nation's largest suppressor supplier and manufacturer. They manufacture suppressors, but they also are a retail space. Now, the way that the NFA was created was that there's a provision, as long as you have FFLs in certain states, there's a provision where they can actually mail you the suppressor to your home. You're still going through the background checks and you're still submitting fingerprints and photographs. All that stuff is still taking place. But with a provision that does exist in the NFA as it sits now, they are able to mail these suppressors to your doorstep, just like Capitol Armory's been doing when they teamed up with Palmetto State Armory. So what does that have to do with the NFA, you might ask? Well, let's think about this. It's a controlled item under the NFA. If the NFA still exists, this business model is still relevant because it's a controlled item. You have to go through them for this convenience factor. This, like I just said, Capitol Armory does it too, but there's still a provision that fits Silencer Central's business plan. Now, if they become a non-regulated item or just, regular 4473, then this doesn't work anymore. There's no ability to run the business plan the way they have designed it. Because now you have to go to a shop. You have to fill out the 4473, just like buying a handgun or a rifle, and do it the old-fashioned way. So that nullifies a huge amount of business for Silencer Central. That's the problem. If this is correct, if they've actually lobbied to keep suppressors on the NFA, this would make sense. Now, this is still up in the air. There's been a lot of arguments back and forth. They wouldn't do this. Silencer. Actually, let's scroll down. They've made some comments here. That's funny. I was looking for that letter earlier. Okay, here's the official response from Silencer Central. Let's you bring it back right up here again. let me grow this up too. This is always good radio when you see me messing with the screen like this.
Enhance. Just print the damn thing.
Okay, here's the official response from Silencer Central. Silencer Central is closely monitoring the ongoing congressional hearings surrounding the Hearing Protection Act. We have always been vocal supporters of the HPA, as well as the current proposed provision of a $0 tax stamp. Man, I'm struggling. Our priority has always been and will continue to be advocating for the deregulation of the Second Amendment rights while supporting any win we can get for our customers regarding their firearm and accessory ownership rights along the way. Regardless of ever-changing regulatory landscape, we remain focused on delivering exceptional service and standing by the community we're proud to be a part of. Okay, that's cute. That's nice. I appreciate that. Brandon Maddox is the CEO there. But in 2024, this is an interview that he did with AmmoLand News, and it doesn't make sense. Like, it's kind of almost doublespeak. So I'll just read this again. So I don't mean to be just Mr. Reed guy today, but that's just what you get right now. In 2024, an interview with Dan Weingarten of AMOLAND News, Brandon Maddox, again, who's the CEO of Silencer Central, stated that he wanted to see the HPA pass, but had concerns about it. He proposed a strategy different from those of other organizations, such as the ASA, which is American Suppressor Association, the NRA, which is nice to see the NRA actually doing something positive, and the GOA. So this is a quote from Brandon Maddox in 2024. We are both dealers and we are also manufacturers. We have a line of products that are some of the best selling in the nation. People may not realize this because people do not have access to them because we sell direct. We could sell a whole lot more if they became non-NFA items. And then later on he says, try it again. I think we differ from some people is we feel there could be some sort of crawl, walk, run. Some people are really focused on HPA. To me, it is obvious Biden is not going to sign that. I get trying to create some momentum for that. What we have been looking for is, are there some key wins that we can get for the silencers that would help us gradually get closer to getting approved for the Hearing Protection Act instead of focusing solely on that? That sounds nice, right? That sounds nice. But he's not talking about completely dismantling it in 2024. He's talking about baby steps. Here's the thing with compromise that Republicans are really good at: not getting anything in a compromise. It seems like anytime there is any sort of compromise on a gun bill or any kind of gun legislation, we always lose. We give it up, which makes me think, and I've said this a lot, especially on X the last few days, they don't want us to have guns. They, meaning the government. I don't think they want it. If they could just throw away the Second Amendment, they totally would. A vast majority of Republicans and Democrats, again, Republicans and Democrats that are sitting in Washington, they don't want us to have a way to fight against tyranny. They would rather us to be dependent on them, which is not the way a republic is designed to go.
Okay. What kind of American are you?
So again, there's an alleged thing that Silencer Central was the ones actually lobbying against this Hearing Protection Act, and there's receipts to prove this. Okay, this is the issue. All right, here's the lobbying report. So, a lot of this stuff doesn't matter. Now, this was in 2024. Just to be fair, this was submitted for the 2024 cycle. They paid for a fair bit of cash. Well, let's see. That doesn't really... Okay, here's what I want to show you. The lobbying activity is to develop and support suppressor tax stamp conservation legislation. Now, this is confusing. This is a confusing term. The tax, as it sits, the way I understand this, currently the $200 tax goes to something called the Pittman-Robertson Act, which is meant for conservation, for wetlands and wildlife and whatever. But the way that reads doesn't really sound like that's what they're trying to do. Develop and support suppressor tax stamp conservation legislation, which sounds like they're trying to keep the stamp process intact. I could be wrong. I could be reading that wrong. But it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Now they've spent a lot of money. They spent a lot of money on lobbying to apparently, allegedly, keep us from having suppressors back. This is the first time in 100 years that this would be the biggest pro-gun legislation in pretty much everybody's lifetime. This would be so amazing if it could actually happen. And who knows? It may or may not. We're going to keep an eye on this. I'm going to keep seeing what's going on. Again, this is still kind of alleged that Silencer Central is doing this stuff. What I thought was interesting, I'm going to pull this up real quick too. Then we're going to go to the next topic here. After all, I've spent like 25 minutes talking about this with you guys. So, Gun Owners of America created this letter to suppressor manufacturers in the United States. And I'm not going to read the letter, but it's absolutely fantastic. And obviously you see up top, no compromise, which is GOA's slogan. And we 100% agree with it here at the podcast. It talks about the Hearing Protection Act and taxes and all this stuff, the NFA. It's great. But this is what I wanted to show you was this page. This is a list of manufacturers, suppressor manufacturers, that put their name and their businesses on front and center and send it to the government. There's also Silencer Co. and Silencer Shop also put their names on this after this was all printed off. But you can see there's a vast amount of, you can't quite see them. Now I made it too big. There's a vast numbers of manufacturers on there. And it's great to see that that there are companies that are willing to keep freedom in front of profits. Silencer Central did not put their name on this letter. They were part of the American Suppressor Association, but they withdrew that membership last year, which I mean, read that as what you will. I'm just saying what happened. I don't know what to tell you with that. Still pretty interesting. Anyway, I'll keep abreast of this and I'll share what I find out with you. If you do want a crazy exercise, look at what lobbying is doing to our freedom. Go look at just who makes how much money and where it goes. It'll make you sick. And while we're still on the topic of suppressors, I want to talk to you about something that that happened a few days ago. So apparently some of these pro 2A organizations caught wind that the ATF was purchasing new suppressors, Huxworks suppressors, at a pop of about $1,300 a can. And the original information that came out, like I said, I think it was on the 9th or the 8th, somewhere around there. They didn't say why they were buying those suppressors, just that they were equipping the law enforcement division of the ATF with suppressors. Okay, whatever. Like, I don't want them to have cool stuff. I don't have a can, so why should they have a can? But it's much, much worse than what you might even think. And maybe you've already heard of this before. But this is the Second Amendment Foundation actually had a pretty good article about this. And you can see right at the top there. The reason why, again, the initial information that came out a few days ago, the ATF would not say what the cans were for, why they were purchasing these cans. A lot of agents were caught on an open source, what do you want to call it? They thought they were in a private messaging group, but no, they weren't. They were, I think it was Facebook or something. They were just talking about what the goodies they were getting. Whoopsies. Everybody else knew about it too. Anyway, it turns out the ATF says, yeah, we're going to be outfitting our agents with guns. And by the way, it's for what? The health and safety of their law enforcement division. Because it's so loud. They train inside. It's really loud. It's hard on their ears. We need suppressors for our agents for their health and safety. That's funny. Because that's what the Hearing Protection Act is all about. Yet the feds don't see it that way. Like, the ATF can have it. That's cool. But no, the common man doesn't deserve a suppressor. Our agents' health and safety is way more important. Anyway, this is super frustrating. If you read this article, again, this was a Second Amendment Foundation article, you're gonna be frustrated by these people. The ATF is gross. Pretty much any bureaucracy that lives and dwells in the swamp, they're just gross. And I really am disappointed. I know Kash Patel isn't really manning that anymore. But Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, for a minute, Kash Patel had an opportunity to really make an impact with the ATF and really throw the gun owners in the United States a huge bone. But we have yet to see. Now, I understand that with the Big Beautiful Bill and the Hearing Protection Act and the Shush Act, there's some great possible legislation. Yes, I know Trump did some executive orders that were pretty pro 2A. That's cool. I get it. I'm for that too. But executive orders, I think maybe I said this in the video that got deleted. Executive orders are just executive orders. They can be expired when the new president, takes office, and like they can just be thrown out the window. We need actual legislation to defund the ATF and then abolish the ATF. There's other agencies already in existence that can do the same work that the ATF does. They already exist. The FBI and the Department of Justice, they already take care of the background check system. Local and state police can handle the investigation and enforcement side of stuff already, because the ATF does supplement their enforcement division with local agencies. So we don't really need the ATF to interpret the law. It's obsolete. The NFA is incredibly obsolete, and it needs to go away. Just like the ATF, or at least the ATF needs to go away in grand fashion, completely just decimated, in my opinion. All right, let's shift gears from suppressors, which should just be accessories, to another accessory that had been bound up in the legal system for quite a while. This is some cool news. This actually comes from, this particular article comes from the National Association for Gun Rights. And this is in regards to rare breed triggers and force reset triggers. This is great. This is a huge victory. The feds, the DOJ, now I just said Pam Bondi needs to do something about it. Well, okay, they actually did a good deal on this one too, because they dropped it. They came to a settlement, and the DOJ said, we're not pursuing rare breed triggers or force reset trigger stuff anymore. We're done. Not only that, the ATF has to return every confiscated item that they, stuff that they took away from citizens. That's it. It's over. I don't know what the settlement is. I don't know all about it, but yeah, it's awesome. The Dudley Brown, who's the president of the National Association for Gun Rights, said, "This is one of the most stunning victories in the history of gun rights movement. We didn't just beat the ATF, we put them in a submission hold, and they tapped out. The decision marks a new era of holding the DOJ and the ATF accountable when they trample the rights of law-abiding gun owners. We made them give back what they took, and that's the precedent they'll never forget." Fabulous. Like, that's absolutely awesome. Anyway, there's a pretty good article. I'll link this if I can remember. I always forget to put stuff in the show notes, but again, this is from the National Association for Gun Rights, and there's other information out there about this. It's just good to see that we're making some movement. We're making some movement. And as much as I take a dump on this administration and their history with the Second Amendment, which is not stellar, they are doing some good things. Hopefully that keeps going. Hopefully it's just not smoke and mirrors. It could be really bad later on. Like, there's some stuff that people are really, really worried about. I'm kind of worried about it too. I'm not going to talk about it in the show. It's not related to firearms. It's just some other stuff that could happen. But in reality, whenever we hear this stuff on social media or even mainstream news, it's probably not exactly what we're hearing. Like, it's probably inaccurate. So anyways, let's shift gears from there. I'm really excited about force reset triggers. I'm not going to buy one. I just have no use for one. Maybe one day, I don't know. But at least now we can have a choice whether we want one or not. It's not up to the government to say, no, you can't have that device. Now, the one stipulation I did read in this, I might not have been this article from National Association for Gun Rights, but as long as Rare Breed and the other forced reset triggers manufacturers, say that twice, as long as they're not pushing the line on what the FRT does, like as long as they're staying within the bounds and the guidance that already exists in the ATF's understanding, their little framework, then they're good. There's not going to be any issues. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I don't anticipate manufacturers from going crazy. Usually they're the ones that are trying to play within the rules of the ball game. It just seems like the ATF and the feds like to move that goalpost around, if you will, and cause issues. I guess that's it. That's really all I wanted to share with you guys today. The world, the firearms world, when it mingles in with the federal government, is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. The things that take place and the people making money, like, things change at a moment's notice. Like I said, with Clyde, was Andrew Clyde? I can't remember his name. That's a lot of the pro 2A representatives out there that fought back against the way that Ways and Means Committee kind of dismembered the Hearing Protection Act. It's good. It's great. But things happen so fast. Things happen. It's just crazy. The last few days in gun law just been stupid. So that's why we have to stay so tuned in and so informed, because if we're not making our voices heard, we're going to lose those rights. And then our children and grandchildren are going to be frustrated with us because we just let stuff go. We can't let things slide like this. We have to make our voices heard. I really do believe that them not passing that part of the spending bill was because voices like yours getting out there and talking to your representation and letting them know that if they don't vote the way that you want them to, they're gone. They're going to be primaried out. This last election was definitely a referendum on the government. Like, you have to fix yourself because we're not handling it anymore. So we'll see. It's kind of crazy to see. It's fun to watch in a way. It's fun to see people just melt down, and me included. I'm sure I've melted down more than once this week, but the left is absolutely freaking out when it comes to the suppressor talk and dismantling the NFA. They are up to their antics of, blood in the streets and silent killers. And one of the, I don't even know what the guys who he represents, what state he's from, or his name, but he was when did the assassin lobby take place? Like, when did they come into play? Like, just antics, just stupid stuff that exists. Try and not get too absorbed in the fanfare on both sides of the aisle when it comes to the Second Amendment. Do your homework, do your research. Hopefully I'm presenting you the information to help you kind of wade through the mess, because it is a mess. But but we can make it. We can make it through. By being involved, by being vocal, by taking people shooting, like I said before, that's not just a slogan, but getting more people involved in the shooting sports and the firearms industry. It helps them see that the gun world really isn't that crazy. There are some crazy people, sure. Maybe I'm one of them. But it's fun, it's enjoyable, and it's something they can teach, to the next generation as well. We have to be active politically and physically active with those around us, and involve more people in the shooting sports. That's how we win. That's how we win. I did a story, was it a year and a half ago, about minorities in California purchasing firearms. They've never, it was a huge demographic that was purchasing guns that was never counted before. They were, I think, black women was like the biggest or most rapidly growing demographic of gun purchasers in California. Awesome. It's awesome to see that. And when we're vocal about, not overbearing and crazy, but when we get involved with those type of people and share our love for the industry with those folks, it's a win. It's a win. And we're not going to win everybody over. Sure, that's obvious. But there's those people that just have never shot a gun, never experienced the joy of hitting a paper target or a steel target or even tannerite. Man, that's super fun. It changes lives. It changes perceptions. But we just have to be loving and excited about sharing that information. That's pretty much it. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's getting super late. I'm tired. You guys are awesome. You guys are absolutely awesome. And I'm so grateful. I know I say this all the time, but I am so grateful that you spend time with me. It helps me and encourages me to be a better person and more excited about my love for the firearms world, because guns are absolutely awesome. Not are they fun to shoot, but the people I've met inside the industry are amazing. I've worked retail, I've worked ranges. The community is so vast and so fun. Like it's the best. It's the best. Ramses is the best. Anyways, I'm gonna let you guys go. You guys stay safe. Don't do dumb things. Be responsible gun owners. Make sure that you're holding your legislators' feet to the fire and that they're doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. Don't stop being active there, and just be good people. I have a feeling times are going to get really stupid and crazy. Just be good people. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next time. Take somebody shooting, and as always, stay range minded. See you guys.